Well, it is Tuesday, and here we are at 7:11 to be exact. And that's normally the time where we bring Dr. John Braccio on from Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing to talk about how planning for the future enhances daily living. And Dr. Braccio is on the line with us right now. Good morning, Doc.
Well, good morning, Rich. Always a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Well, let me just say some things here. You know, we've talked many times in the past about the importance of living in the now and not allowing the past to control the present, as well as excessive worrying about the future. Now, with that said, present happiness on a daily basis is greatly enhanced when someone has a plan for the future. You know, whether the planning relates to economics, romance, professional development, specific career choice, better relationships with people, or whatever the plan might be in the future. The point is really that if we really have this desire to accomplish things in the future, then daily happiness is greatly enhanced. Now, the problem with people that worry all the time or do not plan for the future is that there's really no certainty in their lives. They can live day to day with a certain level of happiness, but the moods can drift like a dry leaf in the wind when bad or unexpected things happen. Future planning is really critical in an age that Social Security is not seen as guaranteed income in the future by many financial experts. Retirement plans no longer have for the most part, guaranteed pensions when you retire. And inflation is seen these days on a daily basis, really eroding the value of one's savings and earnings. Now, my point, Rich, and you know I'm positive, is not
Absolutely.
to be negative, but to indicate one must plan, taking into account the realities of the constantly really shifting and changing world. Changes have always taken place, but obviously the importance for those of us living at this particular time is that we make choices based on good planning for our life space. One example of poor planning in a university town like we have in East Lansing with Michigan State University is where many people get degrees in areas with very few job opportunities. One may enjoy the period they're learning something about ancient archaeology or some other area that has little job opportunity, but in the long run, there's going to be very little happiness if one has huge debt and is not able to obtain a good job and be able to have the type of things that people desire. And things that people desire, Rich, really they include a home, a nice car, vacations, eating out, job opportunities, some form of family that often includes a loving spouse and children. You know, when one hears what we're discussing today, they'll say, well, gee, this seems like a simple thing to do. You just kind of plan. Well, the problem is too many persons who find themselves mired in anxiety, depression, debt, you know, bad job opportunities and poor relationships are often the result of poor planning and simply living day to day and not making good decisions for the future. When one makes good decisions for the future, they see the progress along the way, and there is a level of stability and happiness in themselves that is reflected in the success in their lives. It also can lead to a person being able to sacrifice in the present with the recognition the sacrifices will lead to a much better life in the future. My father always told me that if you prepare the first years after, 10 years after high school, the rest of your life will be so much easier. He was certainly right, and I give the same advice to people now. So I think what we really are talking about, Rich, is really we need to plan for the future. We want to enjoy the present. You know, we want to, you know, whatever our beliefs are, whatever we want to do. But if we don't plan for future down the road, then we really can have a very, very difficult life. And in putting things off and planning and sacrificing to some degree in the present, if there's a goal in the future, can make it worthwhile. And we can see the success every day as success is there. But a lot of people just live day to day and do not really plan. So my advice is, hey, this is the time. Whatever time is left in your life space, you might just want to plan and just make good decisions and move forward and try to be successful and happy. That's my advice to people.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple things there about people who worry too much or have a high level of anxiety, and the living from day to day. How much does worrying about today hold us back from planning for the future? Because, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty these days with the economy, with inflation and all that. So how much is that one of the biggest problems here? We worry so much about today. We just want to get through today that we just forget about the long-term future. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Well, I think a lot, true with a lot of people. I think a lot of people, Rich, they do live day to day. And I want people to enjoy every day. I'm not telling people not to enjoy themselves. But if they don't have a plan, if you're not planning for the future, then you can end up really with no retirement. You can end up with not having a good job. You can end up with not having good preparation, whatever your work might be. And this can be a real problem for people. And I see it every day because one of the worst things you can these days, in my opinion, is you can go through like this, go to school 4 or 5 years, at Michigan State or wherever, then all of a sudden you have huge debt, but you're not prepared for a job. You might be making 13, 14 an hour, which is fine if that's what you're making. But on the other hand, if you owe $100,000, this type thing, it's not a very practical thing to do. I always advise people, if you're going to learn something, if you're doing it for an avocation and to enjoy it, good, but don't end up spending a lot of money for what ends up being an avocation, like ancient Roman archaeology, as interesting as that might be. I just think that people need to plan and prepare. If you want to end up with a house, if you want to end up with a car, if you want to end up with having vacations, you want to end up being able to, support yourself, support a family, if that's your goal, have a loving spouse and children, which I think a lot of people do, hopefully in a spiritual environment, then I think that with that, if you want that type of a goal, you have to plan for it. You can't just all of a sudden end up being someone who can have these things in your life. And this is why I regularly recommend to people, and I talk to them, I don't care how old they are, you can be 15, you can be 30, you can be 50, you can be 70. There's always a time for planning. Like, what are you going to do? Like right now, when you hear about Social Security is not going to be there, the old type of the pensions where you were guaranteed something when you retired, those are heavily going. So people aren't receiving them, and they won't be receiving them. So I think it is important that people be able to plan financially, plan educationally. And I think, in fact, I would think it's very true. If you have some long-term goals, like in terms of education, in terms of what you want for a financial future, what you want in terms of if you want a spouse, if you want to plan for these things, what you have to go through in terms of getting there, educationally, work-wise, commitment, it makes it worthwhile. But if you don't have any long-term goals, often you just want to enjoy today. And unfortunately, in this life, this is a finite period of time that we're here. Okay, so you just want to be planning and looking to the future. And really, I've always believed that opportunity is not my quote or anything, but it's when education and opportunity come together. Whatever your goal is. I mean, my point is not that there are necessarily good or bad jobs. The point is it's a job if you like it and you want to do it and you want to prepare for it. And just, when I have people come in their mid-20s or let's just take mid-20s, they may have a college degree, but they're going nowhere. Educated, they're living home, they live in the basement of their parents' home. They can be 30, they can be 40, whatever it might be, but they haven't planned. My point is not to say, well, you've made bad decisions, too bad for you. I say, no, today is the beginning of the rest of your life. Now is the time to plan, to do what you're going to do, it's kind of, Churchill saying, woe be it to the person who, when the public calls, is not prepared. These are things. My dad, good old, very, very spiritual Roman Catholic from Italy, he always, born in 1895, you can imagine, a long time ago, but he certainly had very, very good advice. His advice always was, John, prepare the first 10 years after high school. Then the rest of your life will be the way you would like it to be with all probability. You can't guarantee in life. Now, I would give the same advice to somebody, whatever they might be. You can be 30, you can be 40, you can be 50. What do you want? Where
Right.
are you? Are you at the gates of opportunity, but you aren't willing to move forward? So, my view is, hey, you want to prepare, you want to have a vision, you want to put that vision into place, Rich. And really, a lot of people are just on a treadmill.
Yeah.
They're just not sure where they're going, and what they're doing. It's not like Ohio State football where they say we'll spend $50 million, but we want a I know you're an Ohio State guy. We want a national championship. Okay, well, anyway, kind of maybe a different kind of an example. But if you want to have a future, you have to say, here's what I'm going to do. So I don't want people to say, Dr. Braccio's talking about football again. No, I'm just making the point, though. If you want to be successful, whatever your age is, and find something you really enjoy, you have to prepare for it and be ready for whatever that entails. And you want to enjoy the road along to your accomplishment rather than living and having so much worry about tomorrow. That's not a good way to live, Rich.
Yeah, absolutely. So, great advice. Great advice from your father there in terms of
great guy.
Yeah. Definitely planning for the long term when you're young. I mean that's going to go a long way for anyone who's listening out there who may be a little bit of a younger age. Just kind of take note there from what Dr. Braccio just talked about here. Planning for the future, enhancing daily living. Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing, here on this Tuesday morning, as he normally joins us here on Tuesdays for this particular segment of the show. Doc, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
It's always like talking to you, my friend. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. You too.